What's the utopia of man? Is it the Garden of Eden, the gym, a Valorant lobby with 9 women,
Hello.
Oh my god.
You guys are all so lovely.
the inner thigh, according to the internet? No to all of those. The utopia of man is the battlefield. Men are made to fight, which grants them enrichment. And because of that, a universe was born with that in mind, though women and people of all identities interested in bloodshed are more than welcome to join if they're interested. Enter Warhammer 40k. Now, what's Warhammer? Well, it should be called Lorehammer with all of the written history that's happened, but short version is it's war crimes forever, for eternity, with every faction in space. I'd argue the Tyranids are probably the most moral because they have no concept of morality, but my knowledge of Warhammer 40k is pretty limited, despite it making a recent resurgence in the gaming community with Space Marine 2, and I think they got a little segment in Secret Level, and I think Astartes, that famous Warhammer animation I'd never watched, is getting a sequel. Point is, they've become larger than life itself now. As said, my experience with Warhammer 40k is limited. I played Mechanicus for an hour and had a really good time, and then never opened it again. And now we're here playing Darktide because, keeping with tradition on the channel, I heard this was another good 4-player horde shooter. So of course, I played it solo queued by myself, because I don't have people to play with. Now this is actually a sequel to Vermintide, but instead of you killing rat people, Darktide shows us a very small part of this universe, with us being prisoners turned into conscripts, and having one goal in mind: killing all who oppose the Imperium of Man, purging Tertium, which in this case are traitors of the Imperial Guard, cultists for Nurgle, the god of disease, and anybody who's a chaos enthusiast or just overall junkie down there. Now, before I hop into going through some missions like I normally do for these, I want to have a quick review since this came out with a mixed reception, and I think transparency is very important, especially if you're talking about paying real life money for something that had a mixed reception. To start, the game is visually beautiful. I don't know a ton about the grimdark aesthetic, but consider me enveloped. The atmosphere is unparalleled, and I love how when entering a mission, we all get to sit in the loading screen together as we hear a briefing, and sometimes they just talk about how expendable we are. All the maps, even though they're repetitive, look and feel unique. Along with that, I really enjoy how they're not the same 3 spots in Pennsylvania like we saw repeatedly in Back 4 Blood. Here we're getting to see a whole city, and the game is well optimized for PC, which should be the standard, but I think it's kind of important to mention since I feel like more and more ports of anything that comes out for every platform is just unplayable. Case in point, Spider-Man 2, but Spider-Man 2 works now, so that is no longer relevant. This is class-based with your own custom prisoner, and I personally have enjoyed all of the classes that I played. The one I matched first and had the most fun with was Zealot, with a very heavy melee dodge build, but from what I've played of all the classes, I think they all bring a specific play style for you to fit into, that you don't have to change how you play your shooters. You can morph them into whatever you want them to be. There's Veteran, which is the reverse of Zealot, which focuses on ranged combat, which is great for people who like to shoot in their first-person shooter. There's Psyker, which is the Darktide equivalent of Wizards. That's how I look at it in my head, and they have a great gameplay loop with all of the abilities they have at their disposal and can use different staffs as opposed to guns, but of course they can still use guns. We don't discriminate. And the Ogryn, which I really liked at time of recording, but unfortunately he'll be the only one not having his own mission for the video, since I didn't have enough time with him when I was recording the missions to feel great definitively talking about him and his abilities. He throw brick, he cool and charming and good guy for team. Ogryns are descendants of humans, I'm pretty sure, with them being giants, and I really like everything about them though. They're massive, their attacks knock people over, they all have a funny way of talking, they're just big normal guys, and they fit well into the Darktide universe, almost like they're real, like the giants inside the Hollow Earth, if you've ever heard that point highly discussed on TikTok. All of the classes are fun, and they feel different enough to warrant their individuality along with the skill tree progression that you can have with each of them. I feel most class-based or hero shooter-specific games run into the problem with having somebody for everyone. Case in point, let's talk Marvel Rivals or Overwatch. Well, what if you play everyone on the roster and you just can't find a dude with skills that click with you? Well, you're just kind of stuck. How often does this happen? Probably not often, but I think there's maybe two or three people I like playing in Overwatch. No, I don't play it anymore. And in Marvel Rivals, I think there's like 4 or 5. So, eh. Progression in the game is also one of my favorite parts. Skill points are frequent. You can level up weapons as well, which incentivize me to try all of them and have fun with all of them. There's the penance system, which is basically achievements, and afterwards you unlock stuff for it, and I found it really addicting to try to get as many of these as possible on all my characters. I've read there were problems in the past with the progression system, but I didn't experience any in my playtime, but also you can look at when the video was released versus when the game came out. In terms of gameplay, I think there's something special here. As said, my experience is biased since like every other 4-player horde killer game I've played on the channel, I've solo queued for everything, but from that perspective, I was able to consistently find games and do well. I think there's not a scoreboard, and a 4-player horde killing game lives and dies by how fun it is to play repeatedly. That's how Left 4 Dead 2 still has people playing it on Steam. It's how I put so much time in Back 4 Blood even when I was consistently frustrated in my experience. And it's one of the reasons Helldivers 2 exploded in popularity. If it's fun to kill enemies, going through missions doing the exact same objectives repeatedly in your game, then it's passed the test. Darktide passes this with flying colors. Before I knew it, I had put in a ridiculous amount of time into this game. And honestly, I don't have much to complain about with the actual experience of just going into matches. If you like the gameplay you see, or the rest of the video, and especially if you like Warhammer, go play this. Like now, literally, just buy the game, but ideally wait for a sale, but still, it's worth it. One thing I appreciate about the game I didn't really talk about, I guess in my little praise section, is that it's very easy to learn and pick up. It doesn't take long to understand, this is good, I should be doing this, versus this is bad, and it's causing my team to get wiped whenever I go walk up and hit that demon host thing. It's very simple, in a good way. Not like drop in, drop out, because, you know, there's still builds, there's still customization, there's skill trees, so it isn't like completely drop in, drop out, but as a whole, this game is very mechanically easy to understand, and I appreciate that, because it's very quick to just kind of pick up everything and take the ground running. Like, you hop in, maybe takes you like an hour, and you're already an expert, like on paper. And I like that. I like how it's so quick to kind of figure out, hey, this is what I should be doing in missions, and here's what I'll do to keep up with them. I just kind of wanted to add this little tidbit, since I don't really think I emphasized it, but it's easy to pick up, so you and the boys, or girls, or whoever you are, can raise hell. So yeah, I like the game, that's pretty obvious, but there's a lot they could actually improve upon. Specifically the repetition. Yes, the repetition is good. I like doing the thing that I find fun in the game. But I cannot tell you how many times I've killed the Beast of Nurgle in missions. I think there's only 3 mini-bosses you're supposed to fight, 4 if you count the demon host, but fighting that guy is more of a punishment. That, and most of the actual boss fights for assassination missions feel really copy and paste. The game is still fun. I enjoy killing the hordes of basic enemies and the unique enemy types that show up to ruin my day. But the special encounters were thrilling the first 9 times, but whenever I see a Plague Ogryn roll up for like the 200th time, it loses a lot of its luster. In addition to repetition, Darktide I feel does not have enough missions, since I feel like even with everything I was doing, everything kind of became repetitive with me redoing the same missions over and over. Like, check out this mission. I have fought this plague-ridden tree more times than I can count for my entire playthrough with every character I have. Now, is repetition a bad thing? No, of course not, because I love the game and I can play this any day I want and still have fun. But the missions and bosses have so much repetition. Variety is very much needed, and it's weird to say that because the game has been out so long and they've had time to add more. But also, variety for that stuff takes an insane amount of animations and work and hours from all the staff involved, and there's still enough for me to play the game and not complain, except in this segment where I'm complaining. So I'm not sure what the devs should focus on. It's just something to be aware of. There's a lot of repetition in this game. If you're cool with that, then you're all good. I played Back 4 Blood, so I'm practically an expert in it. Now, there's also a story in this game, and I think it's very unappealing because in lore, I'm pretty sure we're just regular guys, we're just cogs in the Nurgle killing machine, but that part is fine. I'm not bothered by our role in the Warhammer 40k universe. I'm bothered that we have a very, very boring plot about this traitor infiltrating the base, and it's a snooze fest. I don't want to spoil anything about it since all of the progression as you go through the story cutscenes, but I'll say this, you're not missing out by skipping any of them. Maybe I'm missing out because I don't come from a Warhammer background, but just know what you sign up for. I just personally find the campaign very underwhelming, but this is from an outsider's point of view. In addition, as said prior, there's no stats screen, which I think is kind of bizarre. Like, don't get me wrong, yeah, it sucks if you're playing League of Legends and some guy's spamming slurs in chat. I don't think just not having a scoreboard is the solution. There's so much good with the core gameplay and the mechanics. I just wish there was more for me to go through and some quality of life stuff. I'm sure they'll continue to add stuff. I mean, even as I'm recording this, they recently had an event. The game has been out for 2 years and they're still working on it, but I think the game just needs more content, and maybe that's just me being greedy. Speaking of greed, there's a bunch of microtransactions for cosmetics. I personally don't like that in paid games, but I guess there's a huge exception because they're not doing class DLC or locking content behind DLC. I'd rather just cosmetics be DLC or paid as opposed to more levels or content for the game. Does it suck seeing a cool set of armor and realizing the only way you can do it is cough up real money? Yeah, for sure, but once again, it doesn't impact the game and it's first person. You're not going to see it most of the time. I still love my drip, even if it's first person, but what can you do? And there's still plenty of stuff you can buy in-game with the currency you collect. It doesn't really impact the game. I just figured I'd mention it before moving on to what we normally do here. The more I think about it, the more I think this game is just sort of an investment you make. So you buy the game, and then it's like the stock market. You just kind of wait for it to eventually go up, and instead of selling it, you just play the game, and you can keep on playing it in the meantime. You just kind of wait for it to hit its peak. I'm guessing that's the plan with all the slow updates with events and additions to the game like new weapons. That's something I can't promise with the game. I don't know the timetable on when they're going to change things. I don't know when they're going to make everything better or add new stuff or ever. I doubt they'll ever make a scoreboard. But the point is, yes, it's good. It's good how it is. Will it be better? Probably. Yes, I can't promise a time for that, but you just gotta get it and then wait and see. You probably have a pretty good idea whether or not this game is for you or whether this is something you want to pass on from playing it. It's just one of those types of games where you can look at it and be like, I think that's for me, and I think it's not. And that's okay. Just also know they're still working on it, unless, in the time this video comes out, they just denounce working on it, but we're gonna hope that doesn't happen. Now, every Warhammer character has a backstory. Though, in canon, everyone you play as in Darktide would most likely die or survive maybe one mission, since we're quite literally fuel for the mass war that engulfs the universe forever. For the sake of sanity and storytelling, here's the backstory of our first soldier. We're a complete psycho who doesn't care for much other than the worship of our holy emperor. Instead of having space magic or experience, the weapon of the Zealot is something far more dangerous: belief. Now, what makes belief so powerful?
Well, gravity's still technically a theory. We know that there's an up and a down. As far as Coriolis, I was in the military and I've shot weapons, and we were never once taught to account for Coriolis.
It allows you to create your reality in such a way that no being, not even the Chaos Gods, can interfere. For our lone Zealot, the only belief they need to withhold for this mission is faith in the Emperor to see them through.
The insidious blighted stim trade must be brought to an end. The matter will doubtless require extraordinary violence and mortal peril, so naturally I thought of you. You're deploying to the carnival in the shadow of the Cathedral of Messalina Vengeance. It will likely not be a pleasant experience, but it's not as though you have any choice. I've analyzed the data, and it would appear that the Cathedral is in fact the next link in this squalid little chain. Proceed there at best speed, taking care not to die before strictly necessary.
We enter the mission area with a perfectly balanced team, having a member for every role. Old Man Bourbon alone adds much to the mission, for his undying thirst for both blood and alcohol makes me feel much better about our odds. The giant green swirling vortex at our destination is a little less than ideal, though there's far worse things we could run into given all the difficulty modifiers the game has. These scabs camping out in the depths don't provide much of a challenge to any of us. We're all perfectly grouped up, and I think the hardest thing about this initial area is probably the lack of lighting. A plague Ogryn makes his way towards us, but he's weakened. The mission modifier specifically causes more of the mini-bosses to spawn, but they're far weaker, so it only takes us a few seconds to incinerate his malnourished body. While we're gunning down hordes though, we get to overhear an interesting group of collaborators. Our superiors may not know who these two are, but we on the other hand, we also have no idea. With the upcoming horde approaching though, it's nice to get an opportunity to focus on the Zealot's specialty, which for my build was specifically dodging and slashing, which works to great effect on those not wearing armor, hyped up on drugs and religion. Immediately after, we meet Thing 1 and Thing 2. Just replace the word Thing with Chaos Spawn. The Warhammer figurine website doesn't have a very good model for these guys. I'm not sure how people go about making these models, or if they just buy them and paint them themselves, but they're kind of doing you guys dirty with the Chaos Spawn 2016 model. I think the game did a much better job at making them seem like chaotic mounds of living flesh, though I'm a little biased since I've never seen a Warhammer figurine in person. Luckily, we don't get a moment of rest because the moment immediately following consists of the first unweakened boss enemy we encounter. The Beast of Nurgle is actually very friendly, believe it or not, according to this wiki page, which I'm hoping is official. They represent Nurgle's happiness and excitement, and of course are always friendly in their encounters. Unfortunately, their idea of friendship is executing us and everyone in the squad. Luckily, our team's friendliness far outweighed his. This game, unfortunately, is very skewed, though, with its interpretation of chaos. I know there's a lot of other chaos gods out there, and I know these guys are far more capable at creating enemy designs than the developers at Destiny 2. At the very least, I hope they'd be better, so this does call into question whether or not we can ask the Master of Mankind to bring us more chaos factions and enemies to fight, even though it's been a couple years since Darktide's been released. Now, normally in missions, it's a big deal whenever a boss enemy shows up. But in this one, they're running in throughout. It's to the point where I wonder if this is a fictional mission we're telling to other members of the Imperium to make ourselves look cooler, sort of like Warhammer self-insert fanfiction, which might be every instance of Warhammer when you play the board game. I'm not really sure how it plays. Captain Wolfer and SCP-079 continue to spout nonsense, since Wolfer thinks it's a good idea to send out his entire army for 3 soldiers and Old Man Bourbon. Their dynamic isn't all sunshine and rainbows, but then again, who's to say every 4-player squad keeps up with that dynamic? After finishing the worst lead-filling sewer fight up until this point, we're now much closer to the spot the riot has taken place. Looking at the massive amount of hordes and chaos spawns surrounding us here, I do tend to wonder how realistic this happens to be in the Warhammer tabletop game. If you happen to know how realistic this is for characters like us to be doing this, please put it in the comments. I read all of them unironically, since I'm pretty sure I get an email each time somebody leaves one. We get to eavesdrop on another conversation with Cuphead and Mugman, being worried they'll upset Elder Kettle, right before we find the first area in this mission with lights. The Fermentation Hall is a very nice spacious room, perfect for weddings and other celebratory occasions when not infested, one of which includes being ambushed, and making a meat grinder of every poor soul that decides to drop from the ceiling. In this moment, I felt euphoric, not for my gun or the build I brought to the mission, but instead by my ability to mash left click while dodging attacks from every fiend in the room. Holy Retribution still arrives, and unfortunately, he's not really that different than the other 3 to 5 beasts of Nurgle up until this point. I tell you an exact count, but I haven't been counting. Old Man Bourbon is a saint as always, and we continue through the level. I know I said this before in the earlier segment, or at the very least I meant to, but I still feel that Darktide would benefit with more mini-bosses and encounters. Though, that's bold talk coming from me, considering how often I get grabbed by Chaos Spawn and Trappers in every mission. Jesse and James are about to throw in the towel, but Wolfer still believes that he can salvage this. We spotted Demon Spawn as well, and if Old Man Bourbon hadn't pointed that out, I think I would have triggered it, similar to how he can get triggered if he hasn't had a drink in a few hours. We sneak past by quietly dismembering the horde of dregs and mutants. and we slowly make our way towards the least imposing building in Darktide. Now, while we have some time to make our way to check the right, the villains have been working on the whole mission. Let's talk a bit about the mission itself. Is this metal? Heck yeah, the whole game is a Ghost album cover. There's few things as metal as Warhammer. I'm not entirely sure how us massacring this horde of nobodies working for Koshi and Roshi really helped the Imperium's mission of stopping the Stims underground, though I won't argue, the Imperium only has benefits from eliminating the evil green energy chaos cult.
Whatever the cult intends, those Stims are clearly part of it.
Old Man Bourbon eloquently describes what the cult is up to, and I'm pretty content not being a part of this cult. Storytime about my non-Tertium horde killing days. I don't even know if Tertium's the name of the planet, but I know an alternative/goth woman who consistently used to call me a golden retriever boyfriend. What is that? Well, I always associated it with Mr. Peanut Butter and as a result didn't like it. Though a golden retriever boyfriend is actually a specific type of boyfriend, and you can see the Urban Dictionary definition here. Why do I bring this up? I'm not sure. That's just my one goth dommy mommy story. Am I a golden retriever? It's been a couple years since they said that, so nowadays probably not. Personally, I consider myself more of a laughing lion. Anyway, enough PTSD, back to the cult trying to kill us. The final showdown of the mission is actually very simple. As Bourbon puts it, they're just simps worshipping their goth dommy mommy, so we just have to go through and get rid of their method for accessing her. We just need to kill the guys in yellow hoods putting up their mystical thought barrier thing, and continue doing this until we can destroy the stim tanks, and then bam, mission end. Now, while this is technically an objective-based fight, it sure doesn't feel like it because these hordes are unrelenting. How can this cult have so many members? Yeah, I guess 721,000 people would do it. We do successfully stop the corruption. Comey can communicate over here, talks about leaving the shadows to have 3 people meet. Who? The Chaos Gods? The Holy Trinity? The Reverse Trinity from Erdorf's game? I'm not sure, but together we all depart back to base with another successful mission done for ourselves. But what of Mysterious Voice and Captain Wolfer? What are they going to do? Well, the nature of the missions and their order makes it very difficult to understand plotline, since I'm not even sure if there's an order we're supposed to be playing the missions in. So for now, I think we'll just have to leave John and Amy to do their own thing. They say experience changes a man, and that he's formed by the reality that he created around him. What does this mean? It means I don't understand the references in Kendrick's Squabble Up music video. Now, let's talk about a different outlook. You guys have probably seen this chart before, or this saying beat to death 1,000 times, but there's an important lesson to be taken from this. It's that hard times create strong people. The Warhammer 40k universe doesn't go to any other location outside of this first step. Here's the corrected version. Hard times create strong people, and that's it. Then they just kill each other. The veteran is gifted with being a person born during hard times. Unfortunately, so is the rest of the universe. So he remains stuck in a reality devoid of meaning he can't understand. Forced to wage war as his only skill, our veteran doesn't even get a name, nor a place in history. For the history books speak not of our brave hero embarking on this mission. Instead, the papers of 40k, if there are any, simply dream of cooler guys. For who would want to roleplay as a survivor? Thus concludes the background of the veteran and begins our second holy mission.
Right, we've traced the source of the blighted stims to an obscure den out in the carnival. Guess where you're going? Make no mistake, this is the heart of enemy territory. Every man's hand, tentacle, or unidentifiable appendage will be against you. Cutting the stim supply is out of the question, but we can gather intel for future operations. Give me something we can use. Got it?
We're playing reconnaissance this time around, since there's no clear way we'd be able to stop the Stim's production here. No Old Man Bourbon or other Ogryns to carry us this time around, unfortunately. It's just 2 nobody veterans and a max level Psyker and Zealot. More Stim hunting this time around, though we'll also be missing Tom and Jerry's banter over comms. We arrive at Uptown and we're greeted with a warm welcome from a Chaos spawn. This neighborhood has gone downhill. There's very little resistance as we march through, and for being the heart of enemy territory, the only real enemy is my gun being less than ideal due to my veteran being so low level. The Psyker's lightning in the opening area carried our every encounter with how they were able to stun everyone for us to mow down. While this may be slow compared to the other mission, because it is slower than the other mission, there's still hidden meaning and discovery to be found in every area. Case in point, the Beast of Nurgle who approached our team for a warm welcome, warm from the lead and lightning in his innards. We hit our first horde and were more than prepared. Hordes aren't as big of a deal in Darktide as they are in Deep Rock Galactic, except when they are. Even with me wasting all of my ammo and running around wielding my knife like a maniac immediately afterward, it went well. We hop in the elevator and finally reach our destination, which is another ambush. Well-lit rooms in Darktide are not to be trusted, mainly due to the fact almost every well-lit room in the game leads to the Warhammer 40k high school lock-in equivalent. I'm not sure if this is just an American thing, but most high schools have an event where all the students can volunteer to be trapped in the gym until morning. I think there's chaperone. I think there's food and entertainment. I mean, surely there has to be a reason for kids to show up. I never went to one, but the point is, same deal, only difference is the amount of mutants, chaos entities, and toxins in the area. The squad and I bunkered down in this little pillow fort looking like an IKEA showroom and took our Rainbow Six Siege tactical position, shooting everybody who approached us. We got our breaching charge planted and then made our mad rush to the non-ambush parts of the level. Using the Emperor's most holy of instruments, a servo skull, which is something that belongs in a Ghost album cover, we began the hacking and began to survive an ambush of our own making. Nurgle's strongest soldiers couldn't make a dent in us, but also Nurgle's strongest soldiers aren't actually here and would probably annihilate us without any dents needed. For now, I think we're content taking on his expendable soldiers for taking down expendable Imperium units. We finish our hacking and make our way to the Stim Manufactorum, meeting fair resistance, but nothing that's game-ending or noteworthy enough to talk about. We hop into the elevator and gear up for our final confrontation, which is essentially a drug bust. We play DEA for a little bit and collect all of the evidence needed to put Heisenberg away for a long time. This factory is honestly pretty sad. For all the room, you think they'd try to have a more convenient workspace as opposed to having everything so separated. There's not like a supply line or any order whatsoever. Luckily, some of the staff were kind enough to notice my confusion, bagged me, and they began to violently separate my appendages from the rest of my body. The Psyker once again bailed me out, just as they had most of the mission. Teamwork is not required in a 4-player shooter, but it certainly happens to make the game a lot better when it does happen. With our evidence collected, we stopped by the refractor field, I don't know what that means, to put Kid Named Finger and the rest of this operation on ice. It's crazy how for this mission, we're simultaneously reducing the unemployment rate by creating so many jobs for factory workers in drug dens, while at the same time reducing the homeless and addict population. With our reform on the planet done, we lumber towards our ship, another experience under our belt. What experience did this mission grant the veteran? Well, I can tell you I don't understand Lady Gaga's Abracadabra video either, but there's something to be learned here about the human experience. Those guys, those drug-addicted cultists who were trying to murder us, they were living their best lives, making everyone else's lives worse due to the spreading corruption, while we arrived to simultaneously reinforce the status quo of making people's lives worse without spreading corruption. So in a way, we're reinforcing hard times, thus creating strong people. So in a weird roundabout way, we're creating strong men, while also continuing hard times to make less strong men, so that the hard times can keep creating more strong men and women and strong people. So it's almost like this mission changed nothing. Is that what happened? Surely the God Emperor will fix everything. Surely. Yeah, he will. Now, when people say Space Wizard, what comes to mind? Well, for most people, it's Star Wars, or at the very least, it used to be. They've kind of fallen off in recent year, so Space Wizard is up for grabs, and that's what Psyker is here to claim. Psykers have the distinguishment that you can enjoy their powers and who they are, because from what I understand, they're just psychics. They just harness the power of a parallel dimension that's made of psychic energy that kills you if you look at it. I think. Simple 2-sentence explanation with a disclaimer. Gifted these powers from birth, our Psyker has moved on from a life of crime and debauchery, and instead chooses a life of war, crime, and debauchery. We hold no need of such foolish supplies as weapons or common sense. Instead, we can utilize shooting lightning from our hands or using staffs as conduits of our psychic power. We only have the risk of frying our brains. It's sort of like Russian roulette, and everything is fine except when it isn't. Here's something to consider for the short remainder of the video. Is it a gift if you pay for it? Well, it is if you buy it for somebody else, but think of this as a gift for yourself. Well, I'm not entirely sure what the Psykers think, but I care more about what you guys think. Having supernatural powers is a plus most of the time, but we know with Warhammer, things are a little more complicated.
You're heading to Metal Fab 36, where heretics have disabled the primary smelter. A demonic infestation has been suggested. Purge it to get the systems online. These production lines are vital. Rannick wants them operational again right now.
We enter with a group that's perfectly diverse, with a Zealot, Veteran, Ogryn, and myself. Get in, purge demons, get out. Pretty routine. We're running around chucking psychic void power this time around, and also have the benefit of electrocuting others, but it's more of a stun for our teammates to do the work. Now, our powers are far more flashy than the rest of the cast as a result, which doesn't help in survival, but hey, it'd make a good thumbnail. The segment goes pretty uneventful outside of the mass amount of hounds and elites that lurk through every corner. It doesn't help that we're constantly getting downed in the most basic of encounters. Arriving at the workforce assembly, we're faced with a well-lit room, which means our only objective now is to survive. For the Psyker, our only option with the build I brought is to blast, stun, and pray, because I was too low level at the time I recorded this to have the crazy psychic abilities needed to survive Tertium, if this planet is even called Tertium, and maybe that's just a city or a different part of it. We do have an axe, though. That's mildly effective on the bright side. We continue hunting for the smelter and run into our first demonic growth. Basically, it's a bunch of eyes, and it's our job to clear them out. Now, I don't know what they represent. Maybe it's how Nurgle likes watching us play the game. And speaking of clearing out, a Plague Ogryn appears, to then promptly attempt to clear us out while we slowly backpedal fighting for our lives. With the Plague Ogryn down, there is something of note here to consider. Why continuously bring Ogryns on missions when they're going to get corrupted by Nurgle and at far deeper consequences, downing entire squads sent due to the challenge a single Plague Ogryn possesses? While I was contemplating this, I had a flashback to somebody who could answer this, if he was sober. Old Man Bourbon serves as proof that when a single Ogryn is on the side of the Imperium, they can appear as an unstoppable, undefeatable force, and that Old Man Bourbon could rival characters such as Horus Lupercal if he was there. For this reason, I think we're forced to continuously bring out Ogryns due to their infinite potential. Continuing to the smelter, there's nothing of note outside of many scabs waiting to be torn off. Reaching the assembly line, we clean house, and this is where the crowds start to arrive. Exiting the elevator, we're met with heavy resistance, and with our limited weaponry and skill trees, we may actually be outclassed, even with a group as small as this occupying the area. What's nice about the factory is there's always plenty of barricades, crates, and all those good first-person shooter hiding spots to utilize as we arrive deeper into the area. That way we all have a survival plan. The primary smelter is far more open-ended, and also comes with the bonus of having demonic growths that must be purged. The first eye goes easily enough, with us being coordinated in our annihilation of the enemies. Second growth goes a little less well, since by this point the squad and I were separated, surrounded by fiends approaching us, and I was forced to manage my warp death meter with my melee weapon. Luckily, playing Zealot has given me a lot of practice for using melee and spamming dodge over and over. We begin turning the valves, for it's time to wake up the smelter's machine spirit to fix everything that we've been asked of. Not fix everything like the Emperor will do, just fix our immediate problem. The only problem with the smelter's activation is the room is brighter than ever, which means we must attempt to survive a non-stop onslaught. I failed pretty quick, getting down by the horde, but luckily I was raised to fight, simply to die again and join the piles of bloated corpses sitting on Tertium. Now, let's compare some death. Last time we died in a 4-player horde survival game, it was a very sorrowful occasion. It was in Deep Rock Galactic with my gunner getting murked because we had a bad plan. Deep Rock, the company inside the game, Deep Rock Galactic, is built around perpetuating the success of mining missions. And Hoxie's, while exceedingly dangerous, is no match for the blundering, goofy dwarves present. Most of the time. Tertium is different for, it's not something to be conquered probably. It's more akin to the Dark Heart from Slay the Spire. You can reach this thing 1,000 times, and still it beats. No matter how many boss fights are done, the damage, the powers at hand, everything always continues, and it will forever continue, because Tertium or whatever hive world this is actually named, is immense. There's too much corruption for us to eradicate, and there's too many meat puppets for the Imperium to throw at this planet to prevent any corruption from seeping forth. In the end, we're back to the same graph from before. Hard times make strong men, baby. Long live the Emperor. And thus ends the story of the Psyker. I hope this was a good enough ad for you to get the game if you liked what you saw. And if not, I hope this was a scathing, critical hate piece for you to reject the game if you hated what you saw. I think this is a game that you'll be able to tell whether or not it's for you, as I said. And if you're worried about not having people to play with, I still had a lot of fun solo queuing. I'm also used to it at this point, but it worked for me, so it'll probably work for you. Every 4-player shooter game I've reviewed, I've solo queued for, and I think this was definitely more fun than the last one I played. Is it obvious that even for all the repetition this game has, it's more fun and bang for your buck than Back 4 Blood? Yes. Yes, it is. But I'll still dunk on the game. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching. Minor channel updates, I guess. So if you were here for the video, you can leave. So I actually stream and check it out on Twitch. It's not at a particular time. It's just whenever I get a spare moment. But I just figured there's no reason for me not to when collecting footage or just kind of doing whatever. My second channel is for VODs if you want to watch something while you eat, maybe. I enjoy watching stuff while I eat. YouTube and food just clicks with me. By the time you see this video, on the bright side, I should have also finished my 2 longest projects or be close to finishing them. So look forward to those as well, because we've got a lot of stuff coming this year. I'd go into detail, but I'm not sure if I want to spoil anything. Other than that, I have to thank you guys for all the support I've been getting. It's honestly been pretty amazing. I couldn't be more thankful to have such a massive, caring audience like you guys. It's kind of nuts how everything just kind of exploded in popularity from when I first started making videos. I started making like song reviews like way back, and now I'm just doing what I love, and I think it's nice. My name is Yawn, and I love you all. I don't have an official outro. Yeah, that's it.